Bim, guess what? It's what a week that was. It's the 16th of September 2022, and as we speak, King Charles, Prince Andrew, Prince Edward and Princess Anne are having a vigil at their mother's coffin inside the Great Hall in Westminster. So live as it's happening news. But there's quite a long way we've come to get to this position. As you remember last week, it was the day after the Queen died, but a lot has happened since then. So we're going to cover that. It is generally a light-hearted look at the news and whatnot, but obviously some serious issues. But try and put a slant on them that's, you know, not that bad. Hi JT and Rachel, hope you're well. So, the moment the Queen died, like that, Prince Charles, Prince of Wales, become King Charles III. But there's a bit more to it than that. They have to legally be accepted by the House of Parliament, House of Lords. So basically, they went to the House of Parliament and they signed various papers and said various speeches about how sorry the Lords were and how sorry House of Commons were for the loss of the Queen, and then the King had to go and sign some papers to say that he is now King of England, Wales, Northern Ireland and of course Scotland, as well as other territories around the world. And he may not be king in all of them, but certainly he's got a lot of titles now, considerably more than what he had previously. He's annoyed some of the Welsh people by instantly making the Duke of Windsor, was it Duke of Windsor? William, into the new Prince of Wales. There's a bit of beef going on with certain people in Wales who want nothing to do with the English monarchy in that respect. They want a Welsh person to represent them as a Prince of Wales rather than an English person born into all this. But I mean, these things are sent to try us. So yeah, there was that going on, which I watched live. I mean, I do whinge and moan about the news when it's just people sat in a studio, but I'll be honest with you, when it's actually history happening, it is interesting. It's just the bits in between that they could fill with something else rather than just people waffling on about the same old, because that does get very dull indeed. There was a surprise when Prince William and Meghan and Prince Harry and came out of, what was it Windsor, and went on a walkabout together-ish, talking to the public, looking at the flowers that have been left as a tribute to their grandma. And one kind of hopes that William and Harry can it's Catherine and Meghan, isn't it? Can sort out the differences. But I know what it's like, not personally, but I've seen what it's like for people when you have brothers who have a bit of a disagreement, and then it just escalates and it just goes on and on and on forever and ever and ever. But hopefully this will calm down, and maybe the Queen's passing may bring them closer together again. We can only hope. Now, when the Queen passed away, she was at Balmoral, which was up in Scotland, so her coffin was taken to Aberdeen, and there was a Giles Cathedral there in Aberdeen, which is where she was laid at rest. Now this is where it gets complicated. A lot of the foreign channels I follow on Twitter and YouTube and whatever were saying she was lying in state. Apparently you can only lie in state once, and where you lie in state is basically in London when you're a king, queen or other person who's felt distinguished enough to lie in state. So when you're being when you're not lying in state, you're at rest, which makes no sense in my head, because when you've passed, there's no resting, you've passed, but they call it at rest. And what was moving for me, and I'm not a moving kind of person, I mean I do cry when I watch Emmerdale, EastEnders and Coronation Street, but that's usually because my life has led me to the stage where I'm watching Coronation Street and EastEnders. To be fair, I don't watch EastEnders, and Emmerdale. That's what upsets me more than anything else. Anyway, the king and his siblings did a vigil in Scotland, as you can see from the photograph, and it's sad that, you know, at the end of the day, it's their mother who's died. Everyone else thinks that they own the Queen, but at the end of the day, she's a mother, she's a grandmother, she's a great grandmother, she's an aunt, a great aunt, all that kind of thing. And you've got to remember that there's a family there, and they are mourning her in public. So how brave it is to stand there with the coffin of your mother, whilst people gulp at you walking past. Just be glad that you're not in that kind of life, because I can't imagine anything worse. Anyway, after a while, the Queen was taken by hearse, and she was taken to Aberdeen Airport, where they got a reasonably sized plane to bring her down to London. I say reasonably sized plane. I assumed they'd put the hearse in there, but they hadn't. It was just the Queen's coffin, and I think Princess Anne also travelled on there as well, because Princess Anne's been going around with her. But no, it was a massive plane for a coffin and a few dignitaries, and, you know, the daughter. I couldn't get my head around that. It was just a bit weird. I mean, King Charles has been flying around in a private jet, but again, at the moment, you can kind of forgive him for that, because he has to get around to everyone, and it's the only way to do it in a reasonable time. Anyway, once she arrived in London, there was a drive into the town, the city centre, and she went into Buckingham Palace, and she rested at Buckingham Palace. Again, this bizarre term that they come up with. And then there was a very moving walk from Buckingham Palace down the Mall, Horse Guards Parade, skillfully going through the building in Horse Guards Parade, and then down past Downing Street, the Cenotaph, towards Parliament Square, and then to the Parliament Building, where the Queen was laid in state. And that's her arriving. Now, what was moving about this was the fact that, a bit like when Diana died, the royal family followed. So King Charles walked behind the coffin with his brother, two brothers and sister, and behind them in the next row was William and Harry walking together. Now, what I didn't agree with, although I understand why, but thankfully now seems to have been got rid of, but when they did that walk, Prince Andrew, who isn't, let's be honest, the nicest person in the world, but it's his mother who's died, and Prince Harry, who, thanks to the Yoko Ono of the royal family, has disowned the royal family, were not allowed to wear their uniforms. And the irony being that they were the only two out of the 6 who've actually been in actual combat. Prince Andrew was a helicopter pilot in the Falklands War, and rescued quite a lot of people from Sir Galahad, and obviously Harry more recently was in the Gulf War with his Apache helicopter and other things that we don't know about as well that he did. But they weren't allowed to wear the uniforms, which I thought was a bit sad. They could have the medals, but they had to wear mourning suits. So it did seem a little strange to me, that, because this is the death of their mother. I know, like I say, there are issues and reasons why, but I think you can make an exception when you're burying your mother. Anyway, it would seem that common sense has took over, and Prince Andrew is wearing his full military uniform at this moment. I think the vigil may finish now, but at the vigil in the Great Hall, he was wearing his full uniform, and apparently Prince Harry will be doing the same when they do a vigil, which is Prince Harry, well, all the grandkids are doing a vigil tomorrow, and apparently Prince Harry is allowed to wear his military uniform as well with his medals, which makes more sense, and then we can sort it all out afterwards. This is an occasion where we need to remember that it's a family that have lost the matriarch, as well as a country that's lost the matriarch. Either way, it's very moving what is going on. And like I say, I'm not an emotional guy. I've not cried or anything, but you know, I've been moved a little bit. As I was saying though, Prince Charles has been around and about. So he went to Parliament in the Great Hall, ironically, and he did his speech after the Speaker of the House of Lords and the Speaker of the House of Commons did their speech. And since then, he's been to Scotland, and he was in the, what's it called, the Scotland one? Parliament. Anyway, he did a speech there, and then he went to Northern Ireland. Now, what I was surprised about, considering all the troubles that we've had in Northern Ireland, is the fact, hi Angela, it's okay, don't worry about it. What I don't get about the Northern Ireland visit was the fact that they gave out the full route, all the way from the airport, all the way to Holyrood, which seemed, not Holyrood, Holyrood is Scotland, isn't it? I'm getting confused, there's that many blinking places, I tell you. Anyway, he got there, and he had a walkabout with selected people who'd been chosen, and then he did a speech. He was accepted again, got the commiserations from the Speaker of Northern Ireland, and then he had a day off, fair enough, and then he went to Wales this morning, so he's had a busy day today as well. Again, the Welsh, not all, like I said earlier on, are enamoured by the fact that he's going to be, or is, the King, and he's made Prince William the Prince of Wales, but the majority of people were more than happy to see him, lots of smiley faces and all that. And that's one thing I've noticed about King Charles. He's been out and about, and he's been chatting to people. He's looks like he's got blisters on his hands from all that people's hands he's shaken. We'll come more to that later on when we go to the American news, because they don't like him very much, as we'll find out later. But yeah, I think thus far he's done really, really well. But he also has made me very jealous. There was one of the news guys saying that when the King arrived in, I think it was Edinburgh, no, when he was leaving Edinburgh and going to Northern Ireland, the helicopter follows the car all the way there, and you get some interesting footage. You see some interesting houses. Now, I was looking at the houses, like, oh my god, you know, look at the size of that. It's got a pool on the roof, or it's got a little garden on the roof, or whatever. It's really nice. And then countryside and whatever, and then every now and then it just block out or freeze or whatever, like anything does that's mobile. But yeah, the reporter guy said, and I can't believe that he's got there so quickly, because when I do that drive it takes me a lot longer. Well, it will do, because you have to adhere to the rules of the road. For example, traffic lights, roundabouts, other traffic. Whereas King Charles has got outriders, which is 5 or 6, depending where they are, police motorbikes, who basically whiz ahead and just clear everyone out of the way so that the car can go and not stop wherever it's going, so it arrives safely, quickly, and if it doesn't stop, therefore it doesn't give people a chance to do anything untoward. There was a bit of a panic, which I watched live, and I kind of saw this guy running down the side of the footpath whilst the car was going quite slowly in a moderately built up area. Then he run into the road, and I thought, hey, wait up, what's going on here? I was expecting a sniper or something to take him out. And he just did a picture with his camera, waved, and then went back on the footpath again. So yeah, it was a very bizarre incident, but it does make me want to have an outrider, because I get really fed up with getting stuck in traffic, and when traffic lights are always against you and everything. So I think it's only fair that King Charles III should give everyone outriders. So we've all got these police officers It will just stop the traffic so we don't have to stop wherever we're going. And I think that'd be brilliant. I think that is a sensible thing that he could decree and give to us. Now, there are some things that are sensible, and there are some things that are not sensible. For example, attacking this morning, 6 a.m, 2 police officers with a knife, both going to live as far as we know, but there is life-changing injuries to one of them. But you don't do it in the centre of London any time of day or night. I mean, you don't do it anyway, but when there's more police on duty at any given point in the centre of London than what there is probably in the rest of the country at that point. I mean, how many police officers have been sent all the way to London to sort out what's going to go on, and particularly with the funeral as well, and someone decides to take on the police? It's not going to end well. Got tasered and is in hospital himself. Hopefully the wrath of the law will come down on him, and we can forget the incident, and hopefully the 2 officers injured will recover quickly as well, because they just turn up for work and something like that happens. It's just horrendous. But yeah, you don't do it in the middle of the biggest police operation probably in 70 years. I mean, you don't do it at all, but I mean, you know, you've got to be a bit... Anyway, that's it for the time being for the royal family. So I managed to do all that in 16 minutes, not 85 hours that news has been covering it for I don't know how long. Thankfully, some of the normal tellies come back on again. Not that I watch all of it, but it's just getting a bit annoying that it's just people sat in a studio talking rubbish. So other news, there has been other stuff going on around the world. Ukraine, for example. It turns out that Ukrainians, I mean, we knew they were a tough bunch, but they're also a skillful bunch as well. If you look at this picture here, you will see that the purple area has got a lot bigger. Now, the 6th of September is on the left, and the purple area is more substantial than it used to be when Russia attacked. But by the 12th of September, the purple area had tripled in size. And I'm amazed, I'll be honest with you, that they've done that. It's obviously the weapons that they've been given, and they rather cleverly give the Russians a bit of a dodgy steer by saying that they were going to attack the south of Ukraine, where the coast is, and get that back. So a lot of troops have been moved from where they were to the south of Ukraine in order to stop losing that land there, which meant basically that the Ukrainians just go in and just walk through and get back what is rightfully theirs. And they've done it in the way that Putin thought he would be able to do it when he started the war, which is walk in and people would be waving the Russian flags because they were so pleased to see the Russian troops. Turns out no one's pleased to see the Russian troops, but they're very, very pleased to see the Ukrainian troops. And it does warm your heart to know that, you know, good is beating evil. The only problem is, you've got to remember that it's Putin and it's Russia, so there'll be a price to pay. And that price at the moment is the fact that the Russians are bombing electric substations, power stations. They've also destroyed, or partly destroyed, a dam. So they're basically trying to get the infrastructure of Ukraine. So the parts that have been recaptured, Russia are trying to knock out the electricity and the water to those areas. To be fair, there's not much left of those areas, because when Russia took them, it wasn't a walk in the park. They literally, you know, near enough every building you see, although I agree that it's, you know, we're not there. We can't see the bits that haven't been touched. We only get shown the bits that have been touched. But there's like apartment blocks with massive holes in the middle and all that kind of thing. Hi, John Paul. But Russia's saying, well, no, this is a tactical retreat and we are regrouping. Well, in a tactical retreat, when you're regrouping, don't you take your weapons with you, particularly your tanks and your armoured vehicles and all your shells and everything else? because you need them for when you regroup and then re-attack wherever it is you're attacking. But no, there are tens, if not more, tanks that have just been abandoned, vehicles that have been abandoned, and there's a lot of weapons that have been abandoned as well. And you're like, that is not a tactical withdrawal, that is a we are out of here. It's almost like, you know, you almost expect to see a table with some hot whatever Russian soldiers eat in bowls on the table, half eaten, and they've just legged it. Now you've got to remember that Russia have always banged on about how great they are and everything, but their army isn't the best trained. They've lost a lot of soldiers in this conflict, injured or dead, and they've kind of recruited youngsters who are volunteering to go there. You know, the ones that have been brainwashed thinking that everything they see on the telly in Russia is true. I mean, we don't believe that everything we see on the telly here is true, but it's truer than what the Russians are being shown, if what we're being showing, what the Russians being shown is true, if you get me. Anyway, they're kind of signing up. They get, again, if we believe what we hear, 3 days training, and then they get sent to the front line. Now, if you get sent to the front line and you've got some angry Ukrainian coming at you with a machine gun who knows what to do with it, because they've all been trained from when they were like 1 to defend their country, which is why it's so hard for Russia to take it, you're going to run in the opposite direction. And more so when you know that they will find what you lot have been up to, or what the people who were there before you have been up to. Which brings us, again, tragically, to the possibility of war crimes in Ukraine. Again, mass graves found, and has been pointed out that normally when there's some kind of war crime goes on and there's like mass executions and all that, what they normally do is dig a big hole, chuck all the bodies in it, fill it up, and then hope no one finds it, which is what Pol Pot did. It's what they've done in various wars around the world, and various other human rights violations. I mean, even the Nazis did the same thing. This time, it looks like there's been a bit of dignity, because a lot of the burials are individual and have got crosses on. We don't know, because these have only been found in the last 24 or 48 hours, whether or not these have been buried by civilians, or whether it's actually done by maybe some Russian soldiers who have a conscience to a degree. But some of the bodies that's been found have been reported to have their hands tied behind their backs, and various head trauma, be that beatings or bullets, and allegedly there was even a knife pulled out of a corpse that had been buried as well. It's, you know, we whinge and moan about our life, but you know, we've got nothing to moan about at all. I mean, it's just beyond horrendous what is going on, and you know, Putin needs to be stopped. And it sounds like the press, which is owned by the state in Russia, are possibly starting to turn a little bit against Putin, and I think that's not a bad thing, because some home truths need to be had. I mean, you know, Putin is the villain. He's recently met up with what's he called? Xi Jinping, the president of China, and they had a meeting. Very interesting. If you remember, before he actually invaded, various diplomats and presidents and prime ministers went over to Russia to speak to Putin and say, look, you know, you can't invade there. Let's talk about it. Let's sort something out. Let's come to an agreement. And he had this table that was massive, this big white table. Well, you ain't seen nothing yet. Wait for the American news and I'll show you something that's even more shocking. But it turns out, publicly, China are not 100% in agreement with what Russia's done to Ukraine. I say publicly, they've not said anything publicly, but it's been reported that that's what they have said by Russian press, and Putin has agreed, as have some of his people, that there's a lot of area in Ukraine that has gone back to the Ukrainians, not trying to deny it, but again saying it's a tactical redeployment of troops, but obviously it ain't. So yeah, Putin, the villain. And then, of course, we've got the hero, President Zelensky, who's been to some of these recently recaptured towns, villages and cities, had a walk around, selfies there with some of the soldiers on his side and everything. And then, while he's travelling from one town to another, he's involved in a car crash. Now, thankfully, as far as we're aware, he wasn't seriously injured, and it was a civilian car that crashed into him. It was more of a fender bender from what I can make out. There's no pictures I can find of the car crash. But hopefully he'll be okay and be able to carry on. But to be fair, if you see all the cars in Russia and Ukraine and you watch dashcam TV, it's very, very unlikely you can drive around for longer than, you know, about 4 hours before someone drives into the side of you. So he probably done well to do as much driving as he's done. But like I say, hopefully he'll be fine. We've had also more arrests for the murder of Olivia, the 9-year-old in Liverpool who was shot in her own house, and the police did this rather bizarre search at a golf course in Liverpool, where they kind of marched through the stream river thing, going through it, and were rooting around, apparently looking for a gun. But they've not reported whether they found any or whether they haven't found any or not. In the meantime, yesterday it was the sad occasion of Olivia's funeral, and everyone was invited to wear pink, or a fleck of pink, who went to the funeral, and her local school where she went, and the church was literally next door. The pupils there all had some form of pink on them, and they'd all cut little hearts out and stuck them to the fence outside the school, and they'd done big pink Olivia signs for the windows and everything. And they're interviewing the head mistress, or head teacher, whatever they're called these days, and she's saying about, you know, we've put the pink hearts up and we've done this, and all the children are wearing pink as a mark of respect. And I couldn't help but notice she wasn't wearing pink, which I thought was a bit hypocritical. But yeah, it's horrendous. I mean, gun crime in the UK is thankfully very rare. When a child is involved in gun crime, is a victim of gun crime, thankfully again, it's even rarer. And when it does happen, it is, you know, news for weeks until they find the perpetrator of them and bang them up in prison, which is where they need to be at the very best. I can think of other places I'd like to put them, but we'll go with prison for a very, very long time indeed. Also this week was the funeral of Archie Beresford, who was the 12-year-old who allegedly did some TikTok stunt, which went horribly wrong, and he ended up in a coma, and then there was a lot of to and fro-ing from the courts, whether or not to withdraw or keep life support. The doctors were saying there's no chance of recovery at all, totally brain dead, and obviously the parents, as you can understand, didn't want to hear that, so they fought and fought and fought. Sadly, it was agreed eventually to turn off the life support, and his funeral was yesterday. So, like I say, a tragedy. And there's another one which I don't get. Now, this one is in London. This is Chris Cava. He was shot and killed by the police after a car chase in London, and he was the car was hit from the front, not heavily, looking at the car and the damage, but enough to stop it. He got out of the car and was promptly shot. Um, Angela, I agree with you in that respect, but I also think you've got to listen to the doctors and the specialists. Although, if you watched my vlog recently, I'm not 100% sure that they're right all the time either, but it's a completely different thing. If you're in a coma and your brain is calcifying, there's no way on earth you're going to come back from that. That is just impossible. It's already decomposing, as are other organs within the body. There's nothing left, it's just a shell. And if that's what you're being told, as tragic as it is, I think you've got to listen to them. But yeah, it was very messy and unnecessary. It's not the first time it's happened, and it won't be the last time. Guarantee that at some point. But as I was saying, Chris Cava, who was a rapper as well apparently, he was shot and killed by the police, the Met Police in London, after this car chase. And weirdly, the police officer who shot him was not suspended. Now, he has been suspended since, but it was like a week after the event. And I'm thinking that if you are a police officer with a firearm and you discharge your weapon, you should be suspended immediately, and then there's an inquiry into whether or not you should have fired your weapon. I mean, obviously there are cases where there's terrorists running around knifing people and things like that, but they should all be treated the same. Turns out there was no gun on Chris's personage. He didn't have a gun with him. There was no guns found in the car. Bit shady on what his lifestyle was. Nothing's really been said about it. I mean, you can look at social media and all that, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's a young guy who's been killed by the police. For what I can see, no reason whatsoever. It does seem, I mean, you've got tasers. I mean, look at the police officers who I was talking about before. 2 police officers this morning stabbed by a gentleman who was then tasered. That's the way to deal with people. I mean, there'd have been a less excuse for him to be shot than there was for... No. Yeah, less excuse. No, more excuse. What? No, less excuse for them to shoot the guy stabbing the police than it was to shoot this guy. There's no reason to shoot him. And, you know, there is rumours that there's a homicide investigation. Now, we're not American. I don't know why they're calling it homicide. I mean, manslaughter probably. I doubt it'd be murder. But it shouldn't have happened. And as soon as that gun is fired, you should be suspended and it looked into to find out why you fired it and make sure that your mental health is okay as well. Because if you fired a gun, you fired it because you think there's a reason to fire it, which means you either think your life is at risk or other people's life is at risk, and the only way to stop it is by firing your weapon at whomever it is. So you're going through trauma, so you need to be away from that. You know, even if you miss, even if you hit a wall, you need time out just to get your head together. But if you've killed someone or injured someone and you're a police officer, you need to be taken away from that situation. You need to have time to digest what you've done, have time to think about the reasons why you did what you did, and then yeah, that's what I think as well. It just seems a bizarre situation to not suspend him or her. It should be automatic as soon as, because they have to fill a form in. You know, you've got X number of bullets on you, and you go back to the station and you've got 3 less. They want to know them 3 bullets are. You've got to fill in paperwork, and a lot of paperwork for it. But you should be instantly suspended as well. And the case should be looked at individually. Everyone should be treated the same. All the police should be treated the same. It's not like, you know, if I had a gun and I shot a policeman, the police wouldn't say, all right, well, you go back to work and we'll get back to you later on. I'd be banged up, rightly so. So I don't understand why it's different for the police. The police should at least be suspended if they fire a weapon, no matter what who, whatever the outcome, they should be suspended and it looked into. Now, if you fire and you hit a wall, then obviously the suspension might not be too long. But then there might be a reason why you fired, and you might have some mental health issues that have been created from the situation you were in, which is why you fired the weapon. And you need help. The last thing you need to do is be walking around with a gun when you've just gone through something that's traumatic. So yeah, suspend police officers once a firearm has been discharged. Now JT says, I watched the police interceptors and they really are wary to fire weapons, so it's a strange story. There must be something we're not being told. Yeah, I mean, what I did hear was they shot one bullet into the vehicle. Yeah, the car that it was in allegedly has been involved with some kind of gun situation in the past, but that doesn't mean that it's still a gun situation now. So it just makes zero sense. Anyway, hopefully justice will be done and we will get to the bottom of it at some point in the near future. Talking of getting to the bottom, in the UK, bizarrely, unemployment is now at the lowest it's been in like forever. Well, not forever, but certainly for a considerable length of time, which is good news. Someone who won't be unemployed, but may well be, how can we say, retired, is Roger Federer. Roger Federer. He's 41 and he's now retiring from competitive tennis. He says competitive tennis because he, I imagine he'll still play tennis, but not competitively. Thanks for clearing that up, Roger. Really needed it. If you like tennis, that's a big story. I couldn't care less. Just thought I'd mention it because there might be people on here who do care. One thing that confused me a little bit as well, which is a completely different story, is apparently the oldest heart ever has been found, and it predates the previous oldest heart by millions of years, which I'm a bit confused about, because if we found fish and other animals around, other than amoebas and hydras and stuff like that, which are like very small single cell, small multi-cell creatures, but you know, complex creatures, then surely they've all had hearts. I mean, obviously dinosaurs had hearts, but they were only a few million years ago. This thing is a considerable number of millions of years ago, and it's a fish, apparently. Its heart is in red. Basically, that's the actual fish in the rock, the fossil, but the heart has been preserved in the rock and has been found, and it's a very simple heart. My simple heart, bing bing bing, my simple heart will choose. Anyway, it's been found in this rock, and scientists are very excited about it because it kind of goes back to the beginning of man. They've also recreated the fish for us as well, which is nice. That's nice. And there it is. What a beauty. It reminds me of a celebrity, but I can't quite put my finger on who it reminds me of. Genuinely, I can't. I'm not saying that and then going to put a picture up of who I think it is and go, ha, no. No, it just does remind me of someone, but I can't think who it is. Anyway, that's paleontology for you. Also, centre parks. Now, centre parks pride themselves on being this country retreat for families where there's lots of outdoor healthy activities to do. And this Monday coming, when the Queen's funeral has been declared a national bank holiday, which means that obviously the banks won't be open, and then multiple shops have said they're not opening, shopping centres are closing, they're not opening either, a lot of restaurants are shutting. That fish could be Mount Lucas. Yeah, it wasn't who I was thinking of, but I can see where you're coming from. And centre parks have basically said to people who are holidaying there that they'll have to find alternative accommodation for Monday because they're shutting their gates and not letting anyone in. So everyone who's on holiday in centre parks will have to go away on Monday and then come back again on Tuesday when the park reopens. So basically you have a day of your holiday taken away from you. Now, understandably, there was a bit of a furore about this So they backtracked and they said, okay, you can stay in your chalets and your houses and your buildings and your whatnot while the bank holiday's on, but there won't be any events going on within the area, i.e. There won't be anyone helping with canoeing or anyone doing the swing rope, the bit where you grab on and you slide down the rope slide thing and things like that. So they'll be having a day off, but you'll be allowed to stay on site, and then it turns out that they've asked people to stay in the chalets because of health and safety issues, because if the places that are dangerous are not manned, then kids might get out the chalets and think they can do it themselves, and then someone falls off and injures themselves. So they're now saying, it's a public relations disaster, I'll be honest with you. They're now saying, you can stay on site, but please stay in your chalets, rooms, whatever, and don't come out because of health and safety concerns. Yeah, I guess where I will never go on a holiday, although I'll be honest, I wasn't planning on doing it anyway. Another one who's not really judged things very well, in my opinion, is McDonald's. Now, McDonald's are closing on Monday, until 5 PM, at which point they're opening. And I'm like, what? That makes no sense. Christmas Day they don't open at 5 PM. This is a once in a lifetime situation, and a lot of their staff, I would imagine, would want to be off for this once in a lifetime event and maybe have a little drink or two to toast the Queen while the funeral's on and whatnot. But no, they're opening at 5 PM. But I tell you who's even got it even more wronger. It's not even a word, but I'll go with it. That is everyone's favourite shop, CEX. They are opening at 1 PM. So, yeah, I mean, talk about greed from companies. I mean, that is beyond greed. I can't think of any other shop that's opening. Supermarkets are not opening. Your Tesco's, your Aldi's, your Asda's, your Sainsbury's and all them, they're all staying closed all day, and rightly so, as a mark of respect. CEX will open at 1 PM. It's a joke. It's pathetic. I mean, they mug people off anyway, allegedly. But, yeah, they're so desperate for cash, they have to do that. The other thing that's been going on, we're going back to the Queen now, is people are going to pay tribute to her, and there is a queue. And the queue now is well over 20 hours wait to actually get from this bit here to that bit over there. 20 hours stood up. It's going to be day and night, obviously. It's getting autumny now, so it's pretty cold at night. You're not allowed to have loads of bags or anything. There are shops that are staying open 24 hours a day. But, yeah, 5 miles that queue. I mean, that is a long queue. I mean, we love to queue. Funnily enough, I went to pick my grandson up from school today, and I got there not as early as I wanted to. I wasn't late, but I didn't get there as early as I wanted to. And there was a queue. And I'm like, how big is this queue? And I said to the woman behind me, I said, are we queuing up to see the Queen? Has the queue made it this far? And she did laugh, and then looked at me like I was a bit sad. But I thought it was quite a funny joke, really. Quite apt. And it was quite respectful as well. It turned out we were. But the views we're getting of people in the queue is impressive. This is a snaky bit just outside Westminster Hall. And this bit here is... Alright, there we go. This bit is going along the Thames, which is jolly impressive, you must agree. But we like queuing, don't we? We are a queuing nation. And then, I mean, you know, this guy, I think a lot of people have had a man crush on him over the years. And, you know, there's no reason why he would have to. But David Beckham queued up for over 12 hours to pay his respects to the Queen with everyone else in the crowds. which I thought was a really nice thing to do. I mean, he was doing his best Peaky Blinders impression, but I mean, other than that, but a nice thing to do. He's such a nice guy. And then, allegedly, you've got these two Muppets. Philip and Holly, accused of queue jumping. Basically, Holly and Phil, they do a morning TV show in the United Kingdom, which is called Good Morning, This Morning. I don't know, I don't watch it. And they'd filmed it, finished it, and then within a few hours, they were in the hall paying respects to the Queen with lanyards on them. Not impressed. I think they've lost a few brownie points then. If David Beckham can queue up for 12 hours, then I'm sure that Holly and what's he called, can queue up for a bit longer than just pushing in. It's fuming. I'm not gonna compare my car now, or whatever his advert is, because no, that's wrong. That's wrong on many levels, many levels indeed. What else was there? That might be it for. No, it's not it for the UK news, because we have had another sad passing this week. This lady here is Gwyneth Powell, and she was, if you're of a certain age, you remember her as the headmistress, Mrs. McCluskey, at Grange Hill, and she sadly passed away. I think she was 79. No, 76, sorry, and she's passed away this week, so rest in peace. Not as, I mean, it's a bit unfortunate, isn't it? You should get a lot more publicity, should have, you know, but anyway, it is what it is. But yeah, I used to like her as the headmistress, and she had to put up with, you know, Zamo and Tucker and all them lot, while they were being mischievous, shall we say. Mischievous, I think that's a good word to use. And then I've got some other little tidbits that I've come across during the week. For example, this, which is off Twitter, I think it was, and it says there, the Queen is dead. Queen's eldest son, Charles, automatically becomes Queen. Brilliant. Something got lost in translation there. So that's African TV, and yeah, they got that a bit wrong. It amused me a little bit under the circumstances. This is an interesting one as well. Charging network operator Offspray have blamed soaring energy prices as it becomes the first to hike charges to £1 per kilowatt hour. So that is, like it says there, 50% increase per kilowatt hour to charge your car. Meanwhile, petrol and diesel are coming down in price. So it won't be long before it's going to cost you more to charge your car than what it would be to fill it up if it were petrol. I mean, again, my opinion on electric vehicles is well known. Oh, it's not American. I thought it was American. I remember a little while ago I said that the Russians and Japanese leader met and they basically disagreed with what was going on in Ukraine, privately stroke publicly, and there was a table involved when they actually sat down and had a meeting, and this is the table. There you go, and you can see there Putin is at the far side, circled, and Xi Jinping is on this side, circled, and there is a gulf between them, metaphorically and physically, I would imagine. But yeah, fantastic picture, and it does make his previous table he had look a bit rubbish, really. Anyway, that's it for UK news. Next up, we've got everyone's favourite, which is, meanwhile, in America. Da 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 and all that. So what's been going on in America? Well, you'd be surprised to hear there's been lots of gun crime. But first off, oh no, it is gun crime. God's sake. There you go. A 17-year-old boy was shot. Let's move that, make that bigger. There you go. 17-year-old boy was shot steps away from his Brooklyn high school on Friday afternoon, according to authorities and sources. The teen was blasted in the stomach at Neptune Avenue and Ocean Parkway in Brighton Beach. Again, teenager being shot. I know I was talking about Olivia recently, who was a 9-year-old who got shot in her own house, but I mean, when was the last time we had a child shot and killed in the UK? And it's just all the time. Well, yeah. Now this is the Americans being Americans. King Charles seems confused on how to enter Buckingham Palace. It was his first day as king, and Charles III had an awkward start to his reign, as he and the Queen Consort Camilla appeared unsure about how to enter the Buckingham Palace. After shaking hands and greeting mourners of the late Queen Elizabeth outside the historic royal home, Charles and Camilla walked down the main gates to appreciate the flowers and other tributes to the 96-year-old monarch. Now I watched this live because it was interesting. So he'd just come back to Buckingham Palace. He'd not actually set foot on the grounds of Buckingham Palace. The car stopped. Him and Camilla got out. They greeted the crowds. They walked for a lot longer than I was expecting them to do. Now, if you've been to Buckingham Palace, there's a main gate, and then there's 2 gates either side, and the distance is quite considerable. And they walked from the first gate at the side all the way to the middle gate. Then they crossed over to the gates, and then they looked at the tributes and went back to where they came from, which is where the car was, which is what any normal people would do. But what he got told then was that he was meant to go in the main gates, and then there'd be a shot of him walking straight in the main gates in the middle, and straight through the archway of the main front of the building, and then he'd disappear, as king, and that would be him becoming king in Buckingham Palace. And they put the flag up and everything else. And the Americans are saying he seems confused how to enter the palace. His mother died the day before. He's 73. He's just become king, and he's just met loads of people and looked at tributes at his mother. I mean, come on. You've got Biden as a president. He doesn't know how to open an envelope, I don't think. Anyway, still better than Trump, though. More about Biden later. Anthony Ray Gray allegedly lied. 6-month baby was in a stolen car to get a faster police response. I should have read that before I read it. So basically, he rang up the police to say his car had been stolen and said there was a 6-month baby in the car so that the police would come quicker and find it quicker. Anyway, he's been arrested for, lying to the police. Russian TV acknowledges substantial victory for Kyiv after a Ukrainian breakthrough. This is again reported in America. Russian state television broadcast an interview on Friday acknowledging that Kyiv had achieved a substantial victory after Ukraine forces burst through the front line in a lightning advance. This is what I said before. Kharkiv, which is where these graves are that they found, was recaptured in the fastest advance reported by either side for months. And it's an absolute nightmare for the Russians, which is not a bad thing, let's be honest. So more to it. Supreme Court. We love the Supreme Court in America because they're all bonkers. I mean, again, they criticise King Charles for not knowing where to go in the palace. But they have the Supreme Court who don't know right from wrong themselves. Supreme Court temporarily lets a university block LGBTQ student club. So there's they've stopped an LGBTQ student group, and the Supreme Court have said, yep, that's fine, you don't have to let them restart again. It's an Orthodox Jewish university, but I mean, come on guys and girls, we're in the 2022 now, we're not in 1922. And just think of the persecution as well that your forefathers fought And what are you doing to the LGBTQ community? It's not the same, but you get my drift. Now this woman here had New Yorkers pay twice as much for COVID tests from a company after a campaign donor was allowed to charge double. So they paid for her campaign, and she let them supply COVID tests, but charged people, because they weren't free in America, double what everyone else was paying for them. Rudy Giuliani, everyone's favourite madman after Trump, and a few others to be fair, calls 9/11 in some ways the greatest day of my life. In what way is 9/11 a great day in anyone's life? Again, 2,996 people were killed in that atrocity, which was remembered on its 21st anniversary in this Sunday. And Rudy Giuliani calls it in some ways the greatest day of his life. I mean, talk about losing the plot. It made Senator Cruz look like a human. 2 dead and 3 missing after a New Zealand boat hits a whale. Now that would do it, I'll be honest with you. If you ram your boat into a whale, then it's not going to end well. Sadly, it's now 3 dead and still 2 missing, but again, an odd headline. New York City refusing to release 9/11 records without lawsuit immunity. So there's a lot of documents which have been given out, or hidden, sorry, after 9/11. The buildings were built in the 70s, the Twin Towers and surrounding buildings, and at the time a lot of buildings, to stop them catching fire, had asbestos in them. Now asbestos is a very safe substance when you can't access it, when it's behind some plaster and some cladding, or when it's, we had it in our school, it was like on the worktops of the science classes, and in those little, I don't know if it's 11 or not, but them little cupboard things that with glass on, and it has a fan that takes all the stuff out, so you can do experiments in there and all the fumes go out and kill the birds outside rather than killing the kids inside. But asbestos is very, very safe. However, it's deadly when it is powdered. Hi Phoenix. It's absolutely horrendous what it does to your lungs, and you can die many, many years later. There are kids in Wigan going into a mill near Wigan Town Centre, which is full of asbestos, which has been trashed and damaged, and I guarantee in 20, 25, 30 years time a lot of them are going to be seriously ill or dead from asbestosis, which is the lung condition that you get. Anyway, it turns out that when the Twin Towers fell, obviously amongst all the other dust that came out of there was asbestos, and we all knew that, but the New York not council, what do you call it? The city hierarchy hid that news from the people of New York, even though everyone in New York knew, because there were some people saying, I remember watching some clip or something of someone going through and, don't breathe it in, it's asbestos. So yeah, but they're refusing to do it unless they get a lawsuit immunity, which means if they cannot be charged or fined or have to pay compensation, they will give the records out, which means that obviously they are lying to their people. 21 years ago, doubt that many people who were there then are still there now in power, but it is worrying when that's what, you know, the people who were meant to be representing the people and looking after the people's best interests come up with such BS. A Hong Kong speech therapist gets 19 months in jail for publishing anti-government kids' books. Genius. 5 Hong Kong speech therapists were sentenced to 19 months in jail on Saturday after being found guilty of seduction for publishing 3 children picture books that were deemed anti-government. The books, which included cartoons of sheep and wolves, encouraged separatism and incited opposition to the governments, said the Chinese government. Oh my God, what they're doing with the Uyghurs. Russian flee as Ukraine troops make astonishing gains in east. Again, I've talked about this a lot today. Ukrainian forces gain control of vital Russian supply hub in the eastern part of the country. And good luck to them as well. I like the fact that there's a Ukraine soldier there stood on the Russian flag and they've blurred his face out. Yet when there's someone who's accused of anything in America, even if they've not been found guilty, they're being arrested, you can still see the face on some of these pictures. But no, Ukrainian in Ukraine fighting a war will blur his face out to protect his identity. Oh, everyone's favourite madman. After Trump, after Giuliani, after Cruz, Senator Cruz, not Tom Cruise, although, yeah, is Kim Jong-un. North Korea vows automatically and immediately to launch nuclear weapons if someone kills Kim Jong-un. Now what happens if his driver, when he's driving around, has some kind of legitimate medical condition and drives off a cliff with him in the back? Yeah. The thing is, the whole country is that brainwashed and that mad, and certainly the hierarchy are, that even if that did happen, it wouldn't surprise me if someone pressed the button anyway, because they think if they didn't, they get taken away and shot. But yeah, World War III, anyone? Yeah. I mean, we've got plenty of options, haven't we? We've got Russia, we've got China, and we've got North Korea as well. So yeah, I can't wait. New York City Council counsels mothers in favour of birthing people. Woke. What the woke are you on about? At this rate, celebrating Mother's Day in New York might get you cancelled. Oh, thank you. I've been working on it. The city's council lefty leadership has become so woke that many members have started to replace the word mother in legislation and other official correspondence with non-gender terms like birthing people and birthing parents. The world is going mad. Can I add to this list of mad people? Because it's just getting longer and longer and longer and longer, and it's getting more and more scarier. And wokeness. Anyone who's woke should be just taken into a room and left with other woke people, and we'll just put them in VR environments where they think they're ruling the world, and we'll get on and rule it properly, because yeah, it's just not happening. Do you remember COVID? Do you remember that thing? I know he means Kim about the hair. I was just joking. Well, there's a video coming up about my hair, so you know, I haven't got around to filming it yet. China quarantines college students under strict COVID policy. 500 students at China's premier college for broadcast journalists, OAUP, have been set in quarantine after a handful of COVID-19 cases were detected in their dormitory. So yeah, a Communications University of China, along with 19 teachers and 5 assistants, were transferred by bus, quarantining for, well, indefinitely, really, until either they all die, they all get it. So yeah, COVID, it's not gone. We're expecting another spike again in the United Kingdom soon as well, apparently. Oh, the joy. The last reactor at Ukraine's Zaporozhye nuclear plant has been stopped. So the largest nuclear plant has been reconnected to the Ukraine's electricity grid, allowing engineers to shut down its last operational reactor in an attempt to avoid a radiation disaster. They're still fighting around it, as I've said before many times, and I've written. If you look at my writing things I do on a blog, it's up there somewhere. You've got this largest nuclear facility in Europe, which is in the middle of a war zone. Now they've turned off all the reactors, so they're not producing electricity anymore, which is good. But they're still nuclear facilities. If they get hit, a direct hit, we're still going to have a nuclear disaster. It doesn't matter whether it's working or not. We're still going to get a nuclear disaster from it. So again, anyone who militarises within a 1 mile zone of a nuclear facility such as this, or anyone who fires a missile or similar within a 1 mile radius of a military zone have instantly committed a war crime. No questions, no nothing, it's a war crime. If you are fighting, either defending or attacking a nuclear facility, or you're weaponising it like Russia did, having all the tanks hiding inside the outbuildings and all that kind of thing, then you have committed a war crime in my book. It is just too dangerous to mess around with nuclear facilities. Have we not learnt from, was it 7 Mile Island, Sellafield, Fukushima, and obviously Chernobyl? You don't mess with nuclear power. End of. A man pushing a walker, Zimmer frame, similar thing, was robbed at knife point in Bronx, New York, for $13. Now obviously the guy with a knife didn't know that the guy with the walker only had $13. It's the principle of someone thinking it's okay to attack or threaten someone who's obviously very elderly, fairly frail, in a lift, in a confined space, with a knife. No, and as you can see the picture, you can actually see the guy's face. But yeah, $13. So yeah, again, hopefully they'll find him, lock him up, and throw away the key. More Ukraine good news. Zelensky gloats as Russia flees vital hub supply of Kupiansk in Ukraine. It looks to me they're just going bang, 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 bang at the moment, and it's great. Someone did point out that they don't want to go too far though, because then they'll be thinning what's going on behind, and then Russia can come in behind them and then, you know, kind of squeeze in on them. But hopefully it's going the right way, and hopefully Russia haven't got the manpower or the military power to actually stop this. And it would be absolutely brilliant if they actually caught back Crimea, which was taken in 2014, annexed, it was said, by Russia. But yeah, good luck, Zelensky, and all that you do. A Texas 17-year-old shoots and kills 2 suspects attempting to break into his home. So 2 men allegedly attempting to break into a home on Friday were shot and killed by a teenager with a shotgun. I mean, that would do it up close range. At approximately 10:40 p.m. Now, this is like the other side of it. If someone's breaking into your house in the UK and they have to come upstairs, you can use reasonable force to repel them, which could be pushing them down the stairs, punching them, hitting them with an object, that kind of thing, and that is classed as self-defence. A shotgun, I'm not sure about a shotgun, but I can see that this makes a bit more sense of defending your own property than some of the other shootings that we get in America. But again, it's just too many guns. Too many people are dying from gunshots in America. It's like the Wild West, but all over. Vladimir Putin congratulates King Charles. Russian President Vladimir Putin leaped to congratulate King Charles on his new royal role on Saturday, becoming one of the first world leaders to do so, in a 2-sentence message from the Kremlin. Please accept my sincere congratulations on your ascension to the throne, Putin wrote in the note. I wish your Majesty success and good health and all the best. That's it. I'm like, of all the people you wouldn't want to get a message from. I mean, you know, nothing about, sorry about your mother dying and all that. Congratulations, your mother's dead. Yeah, brilliant. A Funko Pop shoplifter knocks out a 77-year-old woman while fleeing Barnes & Noble, which apparently is a New York store of some kind. Brazen shoplifter knocked a 77-year-old woman unconscious while fleeing the Manhattan Barnes & Noble on Saturday, getting away with nothing but $35 in Funko Pop toys. I mean, I think Funko Pops are overrated shite anyway. But to actually go and steal them, you've got to be a bit sad. And then to knock over and unconscious, make a woman unconscious who's 77 years old, even more mad. Again, pictures of him there, so you can identify him if you ever go in New York, Manhattan. You can say, oh yeah, that's him. But yeah, it's, I mean, Funko Pops, it's just horrendous plastic that'll be around for centuries. even when people bin them all because they are shite and they go into landfill, they will be there for millennia. You can imagine the Tony Robinson in 3,000 years' time digging up an old tip from the olden days, from like the 20th century. And what do they find? All these frigging bloody Funko Pop things. Now what would they think of us? Oh my God. A CNN reporter was blasted for a disrespectful swipe at Prince William and Kate Middleton. Now bear in mind, CNN is an American-based news channel, and at the moment the royals that they know more than any other are Harry and Meghan. So CNN is facing a fierce backlash after its London-based international correspondent dismissed Prince William and Kate Middleton as the other two royals while referring to Prince Harry and Meghan Markle by name. It's like, yeah, typical Americans, isn't it? I mean, he's going to be king one day. I reckon if he's still working for CNN, he might get deported out of the country, and rightly so, by that other royal. Seoul says North Korea will self-destruct if it uses nukes. Well, yeah, because chances are not many of them will be very good. They'll press the button, they'll go off, but then they literally won't get out of the bunker or whatever they're in. They'll just explode in the bunkers, because let's be honest, technology is not the best thing that North Korea has. Unlike like Jeff Bezos and all that. Oh, hang on a minute, something about Jeff Bezos coming up. Do you remember Michael Jackson? In his prime, he had a pet chimpanzee called Bubbles, which apparently is still alive and in some animal sanctuary somewhere. I vaguely remember seeing something about it recently. Well, in Australia, there was a guy who had a pet kangaroo. Now, they're cute when they're little joeys, or little chimpanzees. Oh, cute. Oh, look, it's wearing a nappy and it's going... That's a chimpanzee, not the joey. But then they get bigger, and then they get muscular, and then they get strong, and then they kill you. It's the first fatal attack by a kangaroo in 86 years. The man, who was 77 years old, was killed by a wild kangaroo that he believed was his pet. It probably was his pet, but it's probably had enough of being treated like a pet. It is a wild animal, it is strong, it is muscular, and it rightly, maybe not killing you, but certainly let you know who's boss. 40 new subpoenas and phones have been phone seizures, sorry, have been done by the Justice Department after the January the 6th invasion of the Capitol Hill. Again, they're trying to find if there's stuff that Trump did behind the scenes, apart from making that ridiculous speech, that actually incited people to do what they did. And there's quite a lot of people close to him who've had their mobile phones taken. Now, I'm amazed that they haven't figured out that the best way to get out of this is to have their mobile phones accidentally drop in some vast area of water, like for example a sea or a lake or something similar, because that seems to be the trick that a lot of people have done recently when people ask for their mobile phones. Particularly if you look at things like the Rebecca Vardy and Colleen Rooney, Wagatha Christie case that happened recently. A vital phone somehow ended up in the sea, and that's the way forward if you want to, stay out of prison. A sword-wielding man shot dead after running towards Phoenix cops. Well, what did you expect? It was a samurai sword, and he was fatally shot by the police. Now, again, I would class that as self-defence. If someone's coming at you with a samurai sword, then yeah, fine, fair enough. And at least it was the police shooting someone who had a weapon, who was threatening them. But again, whoever fired the shots, how many officers fired the shots, they should all be suspended, and it should be gone through as to what is going on. No doubt, most of them, if not all of them, are still on the streets now, after going through that escapade. I mean, they are humans, and someone coming towards you with a samurai sword, and then one of them firing a gun and killing this person is a major trauma, no matter how you look at it. And again, it does make me wonder if people haven't been suspended for that, why they haven't been suspended for it. Full inquiry. It seems more legitimate than the other one, but just get it sorted and see what happens, and make sure that the officers are okay, that they haven't got post-traumatic stress disorder. A lot of people commit suicide by cop in America. That is true. That is true. But again, if you've killed someone, as a police officer, you should be checked out, and the situation should be checked out as well, like the guy in London should be checked out earlier than what it actually was. The number of migrants drowning in the Rio Grande at the border crossing has got so out of control that a Texas town needs a refrigerated truck to store all the bodies. We think we've got it bad with the channel and what's going on there with all the migrants coming over the channel. But I mean, that is horrendous. Because they won't all be, it'll be families that they've got, and there'll be no ID on them, no nothing, and they've just got all these bodies, and they have to store them in a refrigerated truck. It doesn't bear thinking about. Things need to be done to sort out the countries that people are fleeing from. I think that's the main issue. Here we go, this is a nice woman. New York judge accused of making racist anti-gay remarks in court. Well, she sounds like a pillar of the community, doesn't she? A New York judge allegedly made vile, bigoted remarks while on the job, including saying homosexuality is an abomination, easy for her to say, claiming Hispanic people have deceitful traits, and accusing her colleagues of sleeping their way to the top. But she is still a court judge in New York. I mean, can you imagine if you're an Hispanic homosexual who's accused of sleeping with many people and you go up against her? You've got no chance. An Oklahoma County inmate found dead in his jail cell over the weekend was a plaintiff in a lawsuit against the county itself, alleging that in 2019 he and other inmates were tortured by jail employees who forced them to repeatedly listen to the children's song Baby Shark for hours on end. Funnily enough, he's no longer with us. He's now deceased. Baby Shark, I'm not even gonna say it, but you wouldn't want that, and no matter what you've done, that is horrendous what the inmates did. So yeah, damn right for suing them, but it's unresponsive. He was found. Doesn't say what happened. Might be natural, but yeah, it's America, isn't it? You just have to think these things. Meanwhile, in Russia, a Russian energy executive falls from a boat in the latest mystery death. A high-level executive in Russia's energy sector has died after apparently falling off a boat over the weekend. Ivan Perkorn, 39, was the managing director of the Far East and Arctic Development Corporation, and was sailing off the coast of Ruski Islands in the Sea of Japan on Saturday when he fell overboard from the speeding vessel. So how many times has this happened in recent weeks, where high-powered people who might not necessarily agree with the Russian president have unfortunate accidents and become deceased? I mean, the fact that picture come up then, wishful thinking maybe. No. Donald Trump said to his aides when the election result was given in 2020 that we're not leaving. And he now wants to do it again, the election in 2020, because he thinks that it was a whitewash and he should have been president. And you're like, no, we didn't want you as president. I mean, we got bumbling Biden, and to be fair, he's lasted longer than I thought he would. But yeah, we ain't leaving. We ain't leaving. Now, remember what I said before about how American newspapers will post a picture of someone and say who they are and what they've done, even if they haven't been charged or found guilty of said crime. Well, here we go again. The squirrel was to blame in a temporary power outage in Minneapolis. Nearly 10,000 Minneapolis residents were left in the dark thanks to a pesky squirrel that disrupted power transmission on Sunday. The squirrel came in contact with with some of the equipment that caused the outage, they said. And look, there's a picture of that squirrel, which I think is shocking because we don't know it was that squirrel. They're deflaming the squirrel. Talking of which, Jeff Bezos, remember we were talking about before about how successful he is? His Blue Origin rocket exploded during an unmanned launch this week. It suffered its first launch failure as the booster exploded about a minute after liftoff in Texas. No one was on board, thank goodness, and the capsule parachuted, so it must have ejected somehow and parachuted down moderately safely, which I think is quite clever, and it does look like a phallic thing, the actual thing when it's taken off. It does look very, very phallic, and I think he's done that on purpose. But yeah, that's his first failure, but thankfully no one on board. Disgraced Prince Andrew heckled at Queen Elizabeth funeral procession. A Scottish man heckled the disgraced Prince Andrew at the Queen Elizabeth's funeral procession on Monday through Edinburgh, referred to him as a sick old man. The man was arrested, and then the crowd started singing God Save the King to drown him out whilst he was being arrested. I mean, I'm all for free speech and all that, but there's a time and a place, and a mother's funeral cortege is probably not the time or the place for such a thing to occur. I'm not defending Prince Andrew in any way, shape or form. I'm just saying, no matter how you look at it, he's just lost his mother, and there should be an element of time and place for such things. In America, inflation is a problem, 8.3%, and there's going to be a supersized interest rate hike, probably, to try and slow it down. Now, they do that in Britain as well, and I've still not figured out how that's meant to work. And all these wage demands that people are making, and then they get like a 10-15% wage rise. Well, that's great, but everyone else doesn't do. So they can afford all the new prices. So they buy all the stuff at the new expensive prices, and the poorer people just get poorer. So yeah, I don't get interest rate hikes helping in any way, shape or form. I think at the moment they should be going backwards, especially with the price of energy. Here we go. Prince William and Kate lack affectionate vibe of Prince and Harry, says an expert. Really? Harry was holding Meghan's hand. Now Meghan looks terrified, and rightly so. She is deemed a pariah in Britain, I suppose. Like I said before, she's like the Yoko Ono of the royal family. She's just caused a lot of issues that were a bit unnecessary. But the Americans will support the Americans because that's what they do. They support their own team. So they're saying, look, you know, Harry and Meghan rolled in hands, whereas Charles and Kate don't. Well, Charles and Kate have been married for a considerable length of time anyway. And William and Kate have been on so many public outings that they don't necessarily need to show this. But this expert says that they lack affection towards each other. There's no vibe there between them. Oh, what a fantastic expert. Okay, sarcasm, sorry. Here we go. This isn't quite at the don't feed batteries to babies level, but it's up there. You may not want to know how much sugar is in that mocha frappuccino, but New York City councilman thinks you should. Food industry chains, including Starbucks, would be required to add sugar content warnings to menu items such as fountain sodas, i.e. Coke and Pepsi, smoothies, coffee drinks, and even salads under the new bill being introduced by City Council's majority leader. Now, we do that over here already, but it's like a health warning on cigarettes they're putting on food. But we have the little traffic light system thing, don't we, where it's red, amber, green, and you know most drinks are red, and it says on it, one thing I don't agree with is if you buy a Dr Pepper bottle, which is the 500ml one, it says on it at the side, but it says 2 servings, and they only give you the sugar content and everything else for 1 serving, which is half the bottle. But who drinks half a bottle? You don't, you drink the whole bottle, so it should be for the whole contents of that bottle. Not for a bottle this size. If this was a bottle of Dr Pepper, then yeah, you'd give it as a serving, which would be 300ml or whatever, 14 fluid ounces, and that would be a serving, and break it down that way. And then for the bottle, because people would drink a full bottle of that, whether it's Pepsi, Dr Pepper, whatever. But I don't agree that they say that a small 500ml bottle of pop is 2 servings. Right, we had a bit of a flux then on the old frame. See if it sorts itself out. It's not just fizzy drinks though. It's you know, it's like if you have a cordial, which again I don't know how they can figure out how much cordial you put into a glass and then add water to it, because it's going to be different for everyone, isn't it? I remember my mum used to make it really weak. And I used to think that's how you drunk it, really weak. A bit like, you know, if you buy a bottle of flavoured water, it wasn't much better than that. But, you know, it's because my mum was poor and couldn't afford to just give me loads and loads of orange juice or whatever, so it was like just drinking water with a bit of flavour in it. And then other people I see, they kind of have a glass that's that big and they put that much orange in it, and I'm like, Christ almighty, that'll blow your head off. But anyway, yeah, it's... In America, they finally decided that they need to do something about the about telling people about sugar in things. But smoothies is an interesting one. A lot of people think smoothies are good for you, but they're not. There's, you know, check the sugar content on a lot of them, and there's more sugar in them than what there might be in a can of Coke. It's a bit like, you know, that thing they showed a while ago where there was a baked potato, and there was more sugar in the baked potato than there was in like a biscuit cookie, because of the hidden carbs that are in there as well. Anyway, let's move on while we still can. Man on scooter critically injured in New York City hit and run. A 37-year-old man on a scooter was left in critical condition after he was struck by a car in a hit and run collision in Manhattan. The man was driving a motorised scooter. Now, what have I been saying about motorised scooters? Okay, it's one incident, it's in America, it's miles away. But people are getting on these things with no training, no insurance, no helmets, no elbow pads, no nothing, and they're just whizzing around everywhere, and it's just insane. I don't understand where this craze has come from for electric scooters and electric bikes to be just available for anyone to use without any training whatsoever. Hopefully the guy will be okay, but I think it's a sign of the times, and we might hear a lot more of stuff like that in the future. A massive 11-foot alligator was seen strolling through a Houston suburb. 11 foot is a big beast. It's a big one. It was a 400-pound reptile, and it was trapped by the Texas Park and Wildlife around 11:30 a.m. and then taken to somewhere a little bit safer for it. But I can't help but wonder, is it the one that was on the back of the 4x4 we were looking at last week that was allegedly dead? Maybe it wasn't dead, maybe it broke free and now it's been recaptured and sent back from where it came from. Or if it was ended up in Britain, it would have ended up in Rwanda, wouldn't it? Anyway, so this is the walk from Buckingham Palace to the Westminster, and Princes Harry and William walk side by side in the funeral procession. You can just about see them there. Prince William with his military uniform on, and Prince Andrew in a suit with his medals on. And like I said earlier, I didn't agree with the fact that Prince Andrew was not allowed to wear his military uniform because he has served the Queen. Whatever else is going on, he's still a veteran and I think it's only right now that he has been allowed to for the next few days at least, and then maybe just talk about it and sort it out. Come on, lads, give your heads a wobble. Police are probing topless women. Oh, hang on, there's no pause there. Police probing topless women who attended Utah football game in body paint. So basically, some young women, instead of wearing clothes, just had the vests painted on their naked torsos. Two female fans at the centre of a school police probe after the pair showed up at the University of Utah football games topless with only body paint covering their modesty, shall we say. And who thinks that nudity is acceptable these days? Well, to be fair, every other species on the planet, bar none, except maybe a hermit crab, but other than that, every other species on the planet goes around naked. So I don't see a problem with it. We see loads of people walking around with, you know. Anyway, Patagonia hands company over to Planet Earth. Now, Patagonia is a company I've never heard of, to be honest with you. Mainly because I can't afford their stuff, and now I find out the prices of them. The founder of Patagonia has relinquished his company to Planet Earth. In a letter, he's basically said that all profits should go to save the planet, or help saving the planet. So basically, it's a good idea. Well done to him. He's already made his millions. He's quite elderly, so I'm sure he's got enough money to retire on, and he wants his company to make a difference to the world. We've got rail strikes in the UK. People think that stuff going on in the UK is only going on in the UK, and I'm like, it's going on everywhere. Amtrak, which is basically Aventi, have cancelled all long-distance trains ahead of a impending rail worker strike. Over 21,000 of track miles are going to be left unmanned, so there'll be no trains, no nothing. So they've cancelled ahead, so that when the strike finishes, the trains will be in the right places. This has not been reported widely in the UK, but it's been reported on social media. A guard fainted while standing on watch beside the Queen's coffin. Now, if you're not familiar with what's going on, when someone lies in state or at rest, and it's a monarch, then the military, their responsibility is to protect the monarch until they are buried. So what happens is they stand guard for 20 minutes at a time around the coffin, and then the new guards come on, they all swap round and off they go. And I noticed quite early on that 20 minutes of being stood, you try and stand, well don't try and stand, but imagine standing for 20 minutes without moving a muscle. You can't move your head, you can't move your hands. The only thing you move is your toes, because they give them big boots so they can move the toes and wiggle the toes to try and keep the circulation going. And I noticed when one or two had finished their shift, their 20 minutes, and they were, you know, able to move off, they walk really badly. You know, like you've got cramp or pins and needles or something like that. Well, this poor guard, and it was early morning, he basically fainted, and he proper fainted. He was on the first step, and he face planted a concrete floor, well, stone floor. The building's 1,000 years old, it won't be concrete. Face planted. A couple of police who were also there guarding, they ran over to give him assistance, and apparently, I've not seen this bit, but he stands up and tries to carry on again, even though he's coming off duty now. Anyway, they escort him out of the area, and hopefully he will be okay. But it just shows the amount of respect that these people have got for the deceased monarch, to actually make yourself faint, not deliberately obviously, but because it's your honour to stand there and look after the coffin of the late monarch. And yeah, amazing stuff. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky involved in car crash, not seriously injured. Now this is what I mentioned earlier on. He was early Thursday. He visited a recently liberated city on Wednesday. The accident occurred when a private vehicle collided with Zelensky's cars. The president was examined and was given the all clear. Apparently, he was allowed to continue on his journey. Oh, dogs! I like dogs. Not as much as cats, but I like dogs. A golden retriever that went missing for 3 months was found by Colorado deputies during drone training. So they're getting trained how to use a drone, and they find a long lost, literally a long lost golden retriever, which they rescue from the wilderness and take back to the family, who were very grateful. Happy story. Deserves everything he gets. I'm not going to say his name. Kim Jong-un, he's back. Yay! There's a mystery woman following him, and no one knows who he is. She's the speculation that she's the Tubby Tyrant's loyal half-sister, according to reports. Half-sister. Wow. The possible assistant, often photographed wearing a dark-coloured suit and dress and clutching a handbag, was sighted behind the Supreme Leader at an outdoor concert last week and at several other engagements. So it'll be interesting to see how long she lasts, because I think the average life expectancy of someone who's close to Kim Jong-un is about 6 months. Ukrainian, yeah, you think the Ukrainians are great, and then the astronomers come out and you're like, oh god, they're all as mad. We're all as mad as each other. Ukrainian astronomers claim UFOs everywhere over Kyiv. Ukrainian astronomers say the skies over the war-torn country are crowded not only with Russian missiles, but also a large number of UFOs. No. You're doing so well, Ukraine. You're doing so well, and then you just blow it at the last minute. Now, I think this is right. A New York cop cannot be fired for not having the COVID vaccine. Now, I actually agree with this judge on this one. It's up to the individual whether they want the vaccines or not. And as long as they're not directly putting other people at risk, i.e. working in an area where there are a lot of very vulnerable people, then I don't. It's your responsibility, or your, not your responsibility, but it's up to you whether or not you have anything put in your body, whether it's food, alcohol, drugs, or vaccines. It's your body. If you want to do stuff with it, then that's entirely up to you. Just don't bring other people into it. So for someone to choose not to have the vaccine, you've got to respect that choice. Now, we had this with that tennis player. I didn't say Gorbachev then, but you know what I mean. And he couldn't go. He thought he could go to Australia, but Australia have a rule where people from outside Australia cannot go into that country unless they are vaccinated. Now, that is their choice. It is their country. It's their land. They're allowed to do that. So you have to respect their choice of not letting people in who are not vaccinated, as much as you have to respect people who do not want to get vaccinated. It's a give and take. Now, this police officer in New York was threatened with being fired because he refused to be vaccinated. And I don't think it's a big issue, or big enough issue, for someone to get fined for. We've already said the issues in American police that people need to get fined for, but not this one. And I think the judge has actually made the right choice, which makes a change. Now, remember the young ladies who went to the football match, kind of dressed and undressed at the same time? Well, they've started a fashion trend, because apparently skin is in as nudity takes over the catwalk. So getting your boobies out and other body parts apparently is fine. Nudity and varying levels of nakedness seem to be reigning supreme for the spring 2023 season at the New York Fashion Week. Several labels put out barely their creations. So yeah, it looks like the human body is being respected. About time too, I say. I'm not saying I go shopping necessarily, dressed in a garment which revealed genitalia or something similar. But you know, if you go into a party or something like that, then yeah, go for it. So we're the only species on the planet that cover ourselves, so I don't see the problem. Not in front of the kids though, obviously. Panic at the Disco. Panic at the Disco. Fire at the concert. Sorry, I nearly went into danger, high voltage then. Panic at the Disco fans screamed fire as a blaze broke out during the concert on stage. Panic at the Disco lived up to its name on Wednesday night when a fire erupted on stage during a tour in Minnesota, with fans just feet away. Fans shot videos posted on Twitter showing a blaze break out in the corner of the stage. The music blared out and appeared to staff member extinguish the flame as everyone continued playing the instruments and singing the songs. It was very nice. I do like Panic at the Disco as well. I think they're actually quite good. Oh God. Oh God. My favourite Prime Minister? Liz Truss. Oh, she's such a wonderful person. Sorry. That was when I said something I don't agree with. Joe Biden is to meet with UK Prime Minister Liz Truss in private before the Queen's funeral on Monday. So Liz Truss will meet face to face with the President Joe Biden. Now, remember, she's not a big fan of elderly people, and she didn't want the royal family when she was a teenager, and 2 days after she met the Queen died. I think Biden is playing with fire. He'd probably be safer meeting Putin in a boxing ring. Well, he probably would be, actually, to be fair. Right, again, the police. They're on about, you know, before we were looking at the New York copper who was being threatened with being fired for not having the COVID vaccine. And then you've got an Oregon deputy caught on video attacking a paraplegic. Paraplegic. Doesn't matter what the paraplegic's doing, you do not attack a paraplegic. If you're a deputy, police officer, whatever, you definitely don't attack a paraplegic. He was caught on video attacking a paraplegic activist before shoving him in a jail cell without his wheelchair. I mean, and that's okay. Well, it's obviously not. That's why it's on the internet and all that. But the police. What is wrong with the police in America? 3 killed after a Jeep falls off a Colorado cliff during an off-road tour. So it's one of these things where, you know, you get a thrill by driving a vehicle in a very dangerous place, i.e. a very narrow, windy cliffside road, and surprise surprise, occasionally there's a tragedy and one falls off. Why you would do that, I've no idea. I can't see the enjoyment of risking your life. It's a tragedy that's happened, but you don't get into a car knowing it's going to be driving on one of the most dangerous roads in America. Prince Charles' red chafed hands raise eyebrows after sausage fingers. Now, a few people have mentioned this. Prince Charles's hands have been working very hard recently. Sounds really wrong. Shaking other people's hands. And the Queen, if you remember, always wore gloves to protect her hands. Prince Charles, a bit more slapdash. I think generally just wants to be out there and meet the people and be seen as, you know, a new open person, open king, open monarch, and more to meet the people than maybe his mother did. But to be fair, his mother was 96. You know, it's quite difficult to walk around for a long period of time shaking people's hands when you're over the age of 80. He's already 73. But now people are saying that his fingers, he's got fat fingers as well. Well, he's does a lot of farming and stuff like that, so we may not have noticed his hands before, but a lot of farmers have big hands because it's the work they do. The chafing, I can imagine, is just from touching lots of sweaty hands and shaking hands and everything else, but hopefully it's nothing too serious, and once we get the funeral out of the way and we get some kind of new normal, new normal, then his hands will calm down a bit. But no doubt people will be watching them. But again, it's America that are pointing this out. Some of my friends, I use the term loosely, acquaintances, never met them, but I kind of know them quite well. They're in Florida at the moment, and they are at the Disneyland experience, or whatever it's called these days. Anyway, apparently, according to the news today, funnel clouds have been spotted near the resort, causing a mild amount of panic there. Mild amount. A truck believed to be full of toys for adults overturns in Oklahoma. A local news station traffic broadcast has gone viral after a semi-trailer full of what was believed to be lubricants and dildos flipped on an Oklahoma City highway. Traffic on Interstate 40 near Mustang on the western fringes of Oklahoma City were brought to a halt while the truck, reportedly transporting personal lubricants and flippy toys, rolled over after colliding with another. Its load was seen strewn all over the floor. I mean, it's just unfortunate that in America they call articulated lorries semis, but it's very apt in this case. Right, China. This could be a story that may just appear now and disappear, or it may end up being something that's quite major. Not a big fan of China, but the people of China generally don't have a problem with them. A massive fire in China engulfs an office building. I mean, this is so much like Grenfell, it's unbelievable. But it's an office tower, 656 foot China telecom tower. It burned with great intensity, sending thick smoke into the skies. The fire has now been put out, but casualty numbers are not yet known. So hopefully everyone managed to get out of the building, but it is shocking images, and it does bring back awful memories of what happened in London. Was it 3 years ago now, or something silly like that? I mean, how is that so long ago? Talking of silly, Michael Jordan is the Last Dance jersey from 1998 NBA Finals. It sells for $10.1 million for a jersey. It's not even a jersey, it's a vest. It doesn't even fit him, it's too loose. A worn Michael Jordan jersey from Game 1 of the Chicago Bulls 1998 final sold for a record $10.1 million on Thursday. I mean, what? These people who buy this stuff for this kind of price, have they got no conscience whatsoever? Do they think that buying something like that for $10 million is a good investment in the current economic climate worldwide? I mean, a few months ago, didn't they sell Maradona's Hand of God jersey for $9 million? It's just sick that people think that that is a reasonable thing to do. I mean, obviously, the person didn't bid $10.1 million off the top of the head. There were people bidding for this. There are millionaires who think it's okay to splurge that kind of money on an item of clothing from a famous, okay, very famous in America, athlete, when there are people starving, going to food banks and not being able to heat their homes. No, it is wrong on so many levels. I'm infuriated by it. Like I said, it's just sick that that's what people are doing. This also popped up as well. This is the last news story. The US is seriously considering China sanctions to deter Taiwan action. So basically, the United States of America are seriously considering putting sanctions on China to stop them invading Taiwan. Now, I think that's a good idea, but I think we rely too heavily on China, more than we do on Russia, for everything. And there's too much China money coming all over the world. I was reading something somewhere, I read that much stuff, it kind of all blurs into one, and it was Chinese money that was rebuilding this town and city centre in a non-UK area, non-Chinese area as well. I can't remember where it was now. It's doing me head in that I can't remember where it was, but I only saw it briefly. But they've got fingers in so many countries and so many pies and so many things, and they are so corrupt. They are so untrustworthy on so many levels. I mean, they're human rights abusers. The fact they're threatening Taiwan, what they're doing with Hong Kong, what they do with their own athletes if their own athletes don't perform to the standard that they expect. Everything about China is distasteful and horrible. Yet we are happy to give them contracts to send to make and send to us billions of dollars worth of computer chips, knockoff gear, all this kind of stuff. Telephones, your smartphone, most of them are probably made in China as well. We rely too much on them, and they know that, so they can get away basically with what they want because they know that we can't do anything about it. But what we need to do is immediately stop any more investment by China anywhere in the world, and then wean ourselves off dependence of them for all these computer chips and all that kind of stuff. I'd say at the moment Taiwan, which is not a country, it's an independent democracy apparently, is building a new computer chip factory, a massive one, biggest one in the world, and we may be able to get some from them, but it won't be online for a couple of years. But by then China might own Taiwan. China might go back in and reclaim Taiwan. So no matter how you look at it, China is untrustworthy. We should not be relying on China for anything. I mean, okay, I'm doing a stir fry later on, but that's not the point. We shouldn't have China interfering with our infrastructure, no matter what it is, whether it's 5G or 6G now that's coming out, or is it 8G, I don't know, that's coming out and being rolled out worldwide. China should not be involved in that. They shouldn't be involved in building buildings and structures and things, because that is not what the money. They're not doing it for nothing. They're doing it for a reason. They're not doing it for our benefit. They don't do anything for our benefit. In China, there are buildings being demolished that are multi-story high, and multi-numbers of these buildings in an area are all being knocked down now because they're either A, built that badly that they're just falling apart even though they're not finished, B, they've got no way of filling them with people because there's not enough people in the area to fill them. The companies that are building them have gone bust, and a lot of development companies in China have gone bust. The money is flowing out of China left, right and centre, and these development companies that are failing in China are now trying to take over various towns, cities and whatnot in the United Kingdom, including Wigan, and in other parts of the world as well. And we need to stop it. We need to stop relying on China and China's money. We need to say, thank you very much, but can you now please bugger off and leave us alone? Anyway, that's enough of that. I got a bit serious again then. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I'm sorry about that. I'm really sorry. I'm sorry. Anyway, I'm over it now. So yeah, that is it for this week. So what picture shall I put up as the last picture? Let's put up the lovely fish with the heart. I mean, if you've just joined us or you're coming late or whatever, we talk about a fish which has been found a fossil of, which they've recreated into a three-dimensional fish, God knows how, and they've said that there's a little bit of tissue in there which is the actual heart, and it's millions of years old. I mean multi millions of years old, and it's the first heart that they've ever found. But in order for species to get to a fish from an amoeba or bacteria, there's got to be something in between. They didn't just jump from a bacteria and then all the bacteria thought, oh, I know what we'll do, we'll all join together and we'll form one thing and we'll work together as this one item. I know some of them do that, but they don't make a fish. They make like a blob or a splurge or something, and they all kind of move around as, you've seen microbes like tree fungi and stuff like that. They all move as and just destroy whatever they go over, like fingers and like lightning going over tree trunks and everything, and then the back end follows through. So that is simple organisms working as one, but they don't make a fish. They don't make a fish with eyes. They don't make fish with a heart, liver, mouth, teeth, fins, scales. They don't make fish. So there's got to be something before that. But maybe what the scientists are saying is that it's unbelievable that hearts were around gazillion million years ago, and they only thought they were around 30 million years ago, and that's when they first came in, or whatever. I don't know. Anyway, we'll leave it there. So thank you very much for watching and listening. If you're listening to the podcast, don't forget you can get the podcast from wherever you get your podcasts. It's just called, what a week that was. So you'll find it. And we can, you can listen to it while you're out and about and think, oh, I remember that bit, oh, I remember that picture, or whatever. And if you are listening to this and you're thinking, he's talking about a picture and I can't see a picture because I'm listening to a podcast, well, if you go in the description, there's a link to the video, so then you can sync up the bit I'm talking about to the bit you listen to, so it might be 1 hour and 20 minutes in, and think, that was a bit he was talking about the fish. So I'll watch that bit, and then you'll see the bit with the fishing. So that's how it goes anyway. So a big thank you to Angela, Stay Green, Phoenix Hero, John Paul Derbyshire for your interaction. Pardon me. And I will see you all again at some point in the future. I've got really bad wind. Is that water? It is actually water. It's not gin or anything. It is actually water. So anyway, yeah, look after yourself, stay safe, and I'll see you all again next time. Until then,